Before Apollo 11, the United States and the Soviet Union were competing in what became known as the space race. Both countries wanted to prove they had the best technology in the world. In 1961, Soviet astronaut Yuri Gagarin became the first human in space. America was shocked. Soon after that, U.S. President John F. Kennedy made a bold promise. He said America would land a man on the moon before the end of the decade. At that time, many people thought this was impossible. Computers were weak compared to today's smartphones. Rockets often exploded during testing. Even surviving space travel itself was extremely dangerous. But NASA continued working for years, testing rockets, training astronauts, and risking lives to achieve the impossible. Finally, in 1969, the mission was ready. The mission was called Apollo 11. Apollo 11 had 3 astronauts. The first was Neil Armstrong, the mission commander. Calm, experienced, and respected by everyone at NASA. The second was Buzz Aldrin, a highly skilled pilot and engineer. And the third was Michael Collins, the astronaut who would stay in orbit around the moon while the others landed. These men trained for years for this moment. They practiced emergency landings, survival training, and spacecraft operations countless times, because one small mistake in space could mean death. Apollo 11 had 3 astronauts. The first was Neil Armstrong, the mission commander. Calm, experienced, and respected by everyone at NASA. The second was Buzz Aldrin, a highly skilled pilot and engineer. And the third was Michael Collins, the astronaut who would stay in orbit around the moon while the others landed. These men trained for years for this moment. They practiced emergency landings, survival training, and spacecraft operations countless times, because one small mistake in space could mean death. On July 16, 1969, the massive Saturn V rocket stood ready at NASA's launch site. The rocket was taller than a 30-story building and carried millions of pounds of fuel. Thousands of people gathered nearby to watch history happen. Then came the countdown. 10, 9, 8. As the engines ignited, flames and smoke exploded beneath the rocket. The ground shook violently. Apollo 11 slowly lifted into the sky. Inside the spacecraft, the astronauts experienced intense vibrations and pressure as they escaped Earth's gravity. But after several minutes, the rocket successfully reached space. The journey to the moon had officially begun. The trip to the moon took about 4 days. Inside the spacecraft, the astronauts floated in zero gravity. Everything had to be done carefully, from eating food to sleeping. Meanwhile, NASA engineers constantly monitored the spacecraft from Earth. Even a tiny technical problem could destroy the mission. As Apollo 11 traveled farther from Earth, the astronauts witnessed something few humans had ever seen before. Our planet appeared small, fragile, and beautiful in the darkness of space. Many astronauts later said this view completely changed the way they saw humanity forever. Finally, Apollo 11 reached the moon. Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin entered the lunar module, known as Eagle. Michael Collins remained alone in orbit above the moon. As Eagle began descending toward the lunar surface, problems suddenly appeared. Warning alarms started sounding inside the spacecraft. Then Armstrong realized the computer was guiding them toward a dangerous rocky area. Fuel was running extremely low. With only seconds remaining, Armstrong manually controlled the spacecraft and searched for a safe landing spot. Then came the historic words, "The Eagle has landed." Mission Control erupted with excitement. Humans had finally reached the moon. A few hours later, Neil Armstrong slowly climbed down the ladder. Millions of people watched live around the world. Then Armstrong stepped onto the moon and spoke the famous words, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." Soon after, Buzz Aldrin joined him on the surface. The astronauts explored the moon, collected rocks, planted the American flag, and performed scientific experiments. They described the moon as silent, dusty, and completely lifeless. The low gravity made movement difficult and unusual. Every step had to be careful. Even though they spent only a short time there, the moment became one of the greatest achievements in human history. After completing their mission, the astronauts launched back from the moon and reunited with Michael Collins in orbit. Then Apollo 11 began the long journey home. Re-entering Earth's atmosphere was extremely dangerous because the spacecraft faced intense heat and pressure. Finally, on July 24, 1969, Apollo 11 safely splashed down into the Pacific Ocean. The astronauts were rescued successfully. The mission had succeeded. Humanity had reached another world and returned safely home. Ending. Even today, more than 50 years later, the Apollo 11 mission continues to inspire millions of people. It proved that humans can achieve incredible things through courage, science, and determination. From the first launch to the first footsteps on the moon, Apollo 11 changed history forever. And maybe one day humans will once again walk on the moon, and even travel beyond it to Mars. But none of that would have been possible without the brave astronauts of Apollo 11. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and join us for more untold stories from history here on Past of the Time. Thanks for watching.